I never believed in ghosts or demons or anything beyond what I could see with my own eyes. That changed the night I stepped into the fog. It started as a fresh beginning. I had just moved to a small coastal town in Oregon for work, the kind of town where everyone knows each other, where the ocean air is crisp, and where time seems to move a little slower. I rented a small cottage near the cliffs, nestled at the very edge of town. During the day, it was peaceful. Seagulls cawed in the distance, waves crashed against the rocks below, and the salty breeze carried the scent of pine from the dense forest behind my house. But at night, that's when it all changed. Every evening, like clockwork, a thick, suffocating fog would roll in from the ocean, swallowing the town whole. Streetlights would flicker and dim as if struggling against the creeping mist. It wasn't the usual light, airy kind of fog you see in movies. No, this fog was heavy, dense. It pressed against my windows like a living thing, moving, shifting, almost as if it were breathing. At first, I found it beautiful, eerie but beautiful, until I started noticing something, a shape moving in the mist. At first, it was nothing more than a shadow, flickering at the edges of my vision. A trick of the light, I told myself, just the way the fog swirled. But then, I began hearing it. At night, long after the town had gone to sleep, I'd hear slow, deliberate footsteps crunching the gravel outside my house, always stopping just at my doorstep. But when I looked, nothing. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just my imagination, the way the fog distorted sound. Then one night, my coworker Lisa came over for drinks. Lisa had grown up in this town. She knew every winding road, every little shop, every old story passed down through generations. At some point in the evening, as we sat by the fire, I casually mentioned the footsteps, the movement in the fog. I expected her to laugh, maybe tease me for getting spooked so easily. Instead, her face went pale. "You shouldn't be out in the fog," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not at night." She told me about the Watcher, a legend, a warning, an entity that lurked in the mist, something that had always been there, waiting, watching. People who claimed to see it. They were never the same. Some went missing, some went mad. Others, well, no one really knows. Lisa leaned in closer, her voice shaking. "Whatever you do," she said, gripping my wrist, "don't acknowledge it." I laughed it off, but deep down, something about her tone unsettled me. That night, the footsteps returned, slow, deliberate, stopping right outside my bedroom window. Then 3 sharp knocks. I held my breath. My fingers trembled as I reached for my phone, but before I could dial, the doorknob rattled. Someone or something was trying to get inside. I peered through the peephole. Nothing, just endless, swirling fog. But when I turned away, my stomach dropped. The window, something was looking in. A tall, gaunt figure, barely visible in the mist. Hollow, black eyes locked onto mine. Its lips curled into a grotesque grin, stretching too wide for a human face. I staggered backward, heart pounding. The thing didn't move, but I felt it watching me, waiting. Lisa's words echoed in my head. Don't acknowledge it. I shut my eyes, covered my ears, willed myself to ignore it. Minutes passed, an eternity, then silence. When I finally looked, the fog had started to clear. The figure was gone. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I found footprints outside my house. They led from the road to my window, and then they just stopped, like whatever had been standing there had simply vanished. I told myself I was overreacting, that it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But that night, the fog returned, and this time it wasn't just outside. I woke up gasping, my room ice cold. My breath came out in visible puffs, like I had been dropped into the middle of a winter storm. Then I heard it, a soft, rhythmic tapping inside the house. I turned my head toward the sound, my pulse hammering in my ears. The closet, the door was cracked open, just enough for me to see the inky void beyond. The tapping continued, slow and steady. Then a whisper, so close I felt the breath on my ear. I see you. I bolted upright, scrambling for the light switch. The room was empty. The closet door was shut, but the fog outside was thicker than ever, pressing against the glass like it was trying to get in. I packed a bag that night, drove straight to Lisa's house. I told her everything. She listened in silence, her face unreadable. When I finished, she only said one thing. You acknowledged it. I didn't respond. She took a deep breath, then handed me an old, battered book. The pages were filled with names, hundreds of them, people who had seen it, people who had acknowledged it, people who were never seen again. I flipped to the last page. My hands went numb, because at the bottom of that list in fresh ink was my name. I don't sleep much anymore. Every night the fog rolls in, and every night I hear it. The footsteps, the tapping, the whisper. It's inside now, watching, waiting, and I don't think I have much time left.